Hey, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Mr. B, your host. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day.
There he
Hey,
is.
guys, oh,
Everybody.
my friends. Hey,
Is there
this
a
is,
doctor in
hey,
the house? Yes.
yes, it's Mr. B and friends, and this is what it's all about. It's about community, about getting together, and let's chew on the fat. That's what I reckon. Got to chew the fat. And how you going, Doc?
Doing well, doing well. It's
Yeah.
been a pretty good weekend, yes.
And how's Fly, the movie going? You know? He's our creator of dreams, this guy. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's going well. Things are falling into place, so we're really excited about filming in June next year.
Oh, terrific. And we've got another visitor here for us tonight. That's Brian Tang. G'day, Brian. How are you, mate?
Excellent, excellent. Hailing from Northern Nevada, preppers up here, and glad to be here. Thank you.
Good
Where,
on you, mate.
where in Northern Nevada?
It's about 2.5 hours northeast of Reno. If you've ever heard of the Burning Man Festival,
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
we're close to there, kind of as a crow flies. Johnny Cash sings about Winnemucca. I've been everywhere, man. I've been
Oh,
over
I've been
there,
to
man.
Winnemucca. I just drove down 93
I've been
from Twin Falls to
everywhere.
Vic.
I know it.
Yep, yep.
And we got the golden tonsils himself, Mr. Professor Bauer. Hey, g'day, Prof. How are you, mate? And,
I'm. It's going good. Just enjoying the 93 together weather.
And our resident storyteller, the man in the know. He goes everywhere. Now he's the oldest teenager I know. You got to tie him down if you want to. Yeah, Jim. How are you, Mr. Jim Goodall?
Hey, I'm glad to be here. It's been a long time since we've chatted.
Oh, it has been, hasn't it?
And I want to thank you for sending me the stuff on Perth in 1908. That was kind of fun watching that. It sort of reminded me of San Francisco.
Oh, isn't it funny? There's not many overweight people in those days.
Yeah.
Because what was it? It was the Great Depression, wasn't it? People were starving. Oh well, it's not nothing to be laughing at anyhow. All right, listen. First of all, I like to wish everybody out there in Gaga land and technology land, and thank you very much for all your birthday wishes. I've had over 2,000 wishes. Yes, sometimes I should hide my birth date. You know, it's consuming to say thank you very much. But anyway, thank you very much for your birthday wishes, and I really do appreciate it. Really got me right.
By the way, we're rebroadcasting this through mine now because on StreamYard there's a blue button at the top where your guests can restream your show, and that helps bring other audiences to your show.
Oh, thank you very much, Doc. You know,
so if you look up above where the comment area is, there should be a button.
Oh,
or maybe and you can pick up to 2 platforms that you can send it off to if you have channels set up already.
I don't. But
Thanks,
that's
Doc.
excellent.
Hey, I tell you now, you know, it's been a real kind of crazy couple of weeks. You know, I mean, with this disclosure stuff and whistleblower stuff. Oh, mate, look, it's doing my bloody head. It really is. I mean, there was a little snippet I did see. I tried to find it of Grush talking about alien spacecrafts they've been keeping secret for 90 years. The earliest one they can recall was in Italy in 1933 during the Mussolini reign in Italy there, and of course I personally believe Adolf Hitler got hold of it because basically Mussolini was Adolf Hitler's puppet. So, and I think apparently the way he described it was bell-shaped, 30 meters in diameter. So it sounds very familiar to the actual Bell UFO, which Adolf Hitler was working on. But apparently, by what I gather, which Luis Elizondo, he actually turned around and said, well, all this stuff got shifted off to the United States, bits and pieces of it, off to the United States after the Second World War. So very interesting. But I want to play this Luis Elizondo little bit of an interview he done, but I'll stop it here and there because there's some key words he's actually put in it, which I find very interesting. And take note where he turns around and says, years ago, and this is before Roswell, and it's the way he said before Roswell. It's like to me, Roswell was an acknowledgement without saying it is, you know. So I want you to just take notice of this. I'll just play it now, guys.
And well known. I mean, there's been some reporting internationally as well that there have been some crashed vehicles, and they were obtained by local authorities, and there was some scientific study done on them. I want to be very careful not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I've seen personally some documentation that's very compelling from a particular foreign country, where they had a recovery of a vehicle, and they had some countries conducting scientific analysis on it, and after World War II, allegedly, parts of that vehicle were brought to the United States.
Yeah, I think I know what country that was. It was
Italy.
Yeah, it was Italy.
Yeah, that's as it was explained to me. I saw some documentation. Look, I don't want to get too much into the conspiracy side of the house. There is some documentation that has been validated that was from Mussolini himself, and it's authentic. It's been proven to be authentic. The documentation, so certainly interesting.
Yeah, well, how about that? Well, the thing was, I actually didn't mention the Roswell. There's another interview. I grabbed the wrong one. I'm sorry about that. I'll have to dig it out some other time. But it's interesting. But the thing is I did hear. See, that was in 2001. Now, Grash was actually only a few weeks back talking about it, and so we got a couple of years apart there, and with exactly the same story, which I find fascinating. But I don't know. I feel it's a setup. It's staged. It's like Rush brought it out to back him up, and they're kind of working in cahoots together. Remember, they're all from dark projects and secret projects, and I mean, it just gives me a bad feeling,
Terrence, if I may, I'm hoping that this might be my contribution, as a guest today. There's a lot, obviously, that's happened since 1945 to now. And, we all know for the historical record already that there's Operation High Jump, where they sent a naval battle group down there, and like a guy came back in a dinghy, right? So, that happened. And we already know, documented, we've got plenty of photographic evidence of UFOs flying over the White House and the Capitol. It apparently is a Luftwaffe formation. Okay. And then when you take Roswell and the reverse engineering, and we got our friend Jim wearing a Bob Lazar's, United Nuclear, they reverse engineered the craft that, just like Hitler with his Nazi bell, we got our TR-3Bs and our Solar Warden space fleet and the USS class Hillenketters, named after, what do you know? It's a very Germanic name, especially with always Operation Paperclip connections and things like that. And now, a lot of, my work right now, at least non-professional work, but if you want to call it movement work, is to push forward for what we call full disclosure now. Is when they did a lot of these black projects, like the Montauk Project off of the Philadelphia experiment, and I'm friends with a lot of these survivors, they whitewashed the story, in terms of, Peter Moon, no offense, he got some sources came to him and they gave him a very whitewashed story of what they did to those kids. And they, by their own, like Preston Nichols, that he's now gone, that's allowed a lot of people to come out, by his own admission, over 10,000 kids were thrown through those portals. And there aren't 10,000 kids coming around saying we survived. So take of that what you will. And so, we now have, the government releasing little bits and dribs and drabs of files from 1930s, when the reality is they're suppressing a lot of these technologies now. And I'm sure the main population would be mostly interested in healthcare and energy and anti-gravity and transportation, and laser beams. That's a gee whiz disclosure part of the movement. But the full part is why the government's never going to come out and say everything, because the full part includes maybe allowing some people to become bad reptilian lizard food. Okay. Maybe some of these kids were experimented upon. They were abused. They were MK Ultra'd. Maybe some of these projects are still happening today. And so, these are some of the questions I'd like to raise to kind of close the gaps in the timeline from Roswell all the way to now. Because a lot of people I know in the community are looking for answers, and they're kind of confused as to where are we? What's going on? What's the state of the art? And all we know is stuff from 50 years ago.
Yeah. What bugs me, they always pick the same 2 or 3 talking heads. It's Lou or was it Nick?
Stars Academy, Nick Pope.
Yeah. And
no, Nick. I saw him in Contact in the Desert this year, just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And they just rehash the same old garbage, garbage in, garbage out.
Okay, another notable, his first name is Graham. I won't say his last name. Said to him, "So Nick, we're still back there, eh?"
It's the same, mate. Look, it's the same old spill. It's just put in a different order. It's all just shaken up, put in a different order to look pretty. But nothing's gonna happen until we actually get down to the grassroots.
How
about you, Doc?
government?
What do you
grassroots,
think, Doc?
yes. Well, you're muted, brother.
Where's your sound, Doc?
You're muted, Doc. I'll mute myself.
And it was some good stuff I was saying too. But
and I was watching that. I was watching it. It's got to be good. It's got to be good.
Hey, by the way, Robert, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Prof, that I locked you out there for a sec. I didn't notice that.
That gave me time to do all things you didn't want to see on camera. So thank you for that.
Carry on.
That was very, very helpful. Very thoughtful.
I've been saying this a few times recently that I'm getting tired of the regurgitation. It's like we're in the first grade over and over and over again, and the teacher's just changing the question order on the tests. It's the same thing, and it's like we're stuck in this psychosis that we always have to play it safe. And I'm done playing safe and saying, what if, maybe, are we alone? I'm done with that. I'm like graduated with a degree. I'm past all that. Let's move to some higher stuff, because it's just regurgitation across the web right now.
It is.
I am so tired of hearing about the old stories, Roswell and Travis is a good friend of mine. I love him. But, when I had him on my show, the very last week, the first time I ever had him on, people probably didn't think I knew him, but, he came over here with his son, Luke, and we didn't talk about that stuff. We talked about music and trucks and cars, because no one ever does. It's always just regurgitate. And then you get the people, sorry, I'm just a little angry about those. Then you get the people like the major press right now going, ooh, there's UFOs. We're breaking the news.
They won't, the mainstream media won't publish anything unless they get the okay from whoever has them by the short hairs.
One word: reparations for all of us that have lost jobs, family, loved ones, to being called, ridiculed with name calling and just losing a lot and staying in the fight. And the mainstream media gets to go, oh, it's breaking news. And there's freaking channels on all these Samsung TVs that are nothing but UFOs 24/7. And a lot of our movies, by the way, Countdown, Disclosure, Endgame, and UFO Endgame, and Above Top Secret. But I'm ready for something new. I was getting tired.
I think we all are.
And the Vegas thing, that was the most exciting thing yet that I've had in a long time. It's like, ooh, something new. And if they're going to do it, just get it over with. This is the slowest burn disclosure ever, and I've had my fill.
Well, Doc.
Look, this is where when I started the podcast.
Folks.
Look, I'm a new guy on the block, and I just started the podcast. Well, quite honestly, I have not got the fortitude to actually do a show every day like most people do. Why? Because it's boring. It's boring with the same shit. Excuse my expression. It is the same crap. Now, I like to do a show when I've got something to say. And hey, if I want to spit the dummy on something, by all means, hey, I'll call it how I see it. And what I'm seeing at the moment is a lot of BS, hype, because the ufology today, as I said before, is in 3 parts. You've got an industry which making a lot of money. And
So I've heard. I don't get any of it.
Yeah, true.
For me.
Yeah, I mean, there's always documentaries coming out, but as I said, same stuff in different order, right? And and then your people want to make a name for themselves. They even lie and tell fairy stories. And I mean, the amount of mate. Look, as soon as they brought out about the CIA with their remote viewing, everybody suddenly became a remote viewer. I go, and it's like everybody's doing shit. Which, if they would have said this 20 years ago, they would have went cuckoo, cuckoo.
I mean, I'm
a lot
glad.
of what we're seeing right now was said 20 years ago. I mean, and actually, I was thinking about this the other day. I had watched you guys seen Redacted, Clayton Morris on YouTube? He's an ex-Fox host, and he's got his own show. He's expat out of Portugal, and he just drops the stuff that you don't hear. And he had this guy on who just, and this is what made me think about this timeline. He had this guy on talking about 9/11, and he has just released a book about Building 7 in particular, and about how all of the actual empirical data that's available don't add up to the explanations that were given. And you're seeing the same thing, in my opinion. I just saw Bobby Kennedy Jr. on with Bill Maher on his show Club Random. I don't know if you've seen that, but Maher's got some great shows there. He sits there and gets stoned and drunk, and whether his guest does or not, and he just shoots the shit with him. But Kennedy's whole thing, but all of the folks on that side of the field typically go after is he's after this whole vaccine thing, and he's going, look, I have questions based on empirical data.
Yes.
And the reason people don't want to debate me is because they can't provide an answer that supports their position when they answer the data, right?
Yeah, they're wrong, and they're dead wrong. I've already lost several friends, so I don't know if I can say that, but to anything but yes.
So the broader point that I'm making is that when I thought about it, I said, well, when was the last time over the last 3 years, in particular, when they've done all of this control mechanism, carefully crafted and curated content to make us all, in the corral, is I haven't heard much about 9/11, because there's a lot of talk about control because of the different things about disclosure and the health and all the stuff that's happened. This whole control thing has come into focus. Everybody's going, well, who's trying to control what and how are they doing it? And you point to the what was it, Agenda 21, the symposium they had 2 months before the pandemic, the virus was released in Brazil, talking about exactly that. What are we going to do if that happens? And boom, it happens. You look at data like that, and you have the whole question of correlation versus causation, and maybe both. And the whole narrative that these people are trying to push has gotten a huge pushback by the very technology that they enabled. In other words, in fact, Kennedy said this in one of his interviews. The whole podcast and what we're doing right now is taking over as what was typically referred to as the legacy media. That media has been exposed for the nonsense, the incompetence, and the blatant bullshit that they've put out, and everybody's seeing it now. And because there are things like this, I think that's changing the narrative, and that's what I think. To me, that feels like a positive move in the right direction.
We've been all bored of the mainstream media for this whole time, and I want to speak to that, because this whole time they've been speaking to the people who want to believe. But I want to say that there are people in the community, I'm in touch with them. They're not believers, they're knowers. These are the people who are being abducted right now. These are people who, some of these programs are still taking them. I don't know, Terrence, if you've covered on this show with our esteemed colleagues here, the secret space programs, the 20 years and back programs and things like that?
No, I have not. No, I have not.
No,
I'm
but
a
I've
bit.
done
I'm
shows
on
on
that.
it.
Look, I
Yeah.
believe there is. I believe there is a secret space program. That I have no doubt.
There are multiple.
But
multiple.
but this 20 away, 20 back. Look. I'll be honest. I'm sitting on the fence with it. I mean,
I think
doesn't come true to me. For some reason. I mean, then again, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
So let me ask you this, everyone, as a general question of what we think we see and know and that we use in technology today. What's the feeling around everyone as far as, is there most likely technology that's at least 10, 20, maybe 50 or 100 years ahead of this that's available right now?
Oh, most certainly.
Yeah.
Right.
You've
So
seen the
if that,
QR3Bs, right? Like, let's talk about the Ad Astra program. That's anti-gravity right there. Okay, they have the patents on there out on the internet for people to find. There's plenty of footage. A zillion people have seen the flying black triangles. We're past the point of like, are people seeing things? We know they're there. Okay, fine. Are those human or are they alien? Well, we know from United Nuclear, our friends Bob Lazar and Area 51. Okay, that's probably the reverse engineered craft. Okay, so those are human. So like, we don't have to keep backtracking to Roswell when we already know. Yeah, I'd say people flying around in black triangles from here to the moon and back in like 40 minutes flight time, according to some of these accounts, maybe off the top of my head. I'd say it's 100 years ahead of what we got now. I mean, I like my
certainly,
Tesla.
most certainly. Look, and the classic one is that
right.
The British
Answer
Polaris.
the question. That's a great question. I'm sorry.
The British submarines, the Polaris submarines, they had a GPS on board, a rack system, but it was a GPS. That was secret for 40 odd years before it became into the public media. A secret. And it went from something a rack size down to something you can now. In your cell phone.
Yeah. So I mean, the follow-up question to that is, so what do you, if that's the case, if that technology exists, and in other words, it's off the bench, it's in development, it's deployable, it's manufacturable, right?
It's expensive, but it's deployed. How's that? It's very expensive, but it is deployed. From what I understand,
and it's simply a matter of trying to figure out how to reproduce it, and all the economics involved in distribution and all that stuff. But my point is that I wanted to ask this question. There's a concept floating around that says the real disclosure is not that there are cosmic cousins and there's been an interaction with them, but it's the fact that we've had the technologies hidden and buried that could have completely transformed and changed the world that we live in today had they been not hidden and had they been let loose as they should have. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, we can already have the Star Trek technology, and that's part of what George Bush said when if the American people knew for the things that we were involved in, like they would have been chasing us down the streets a long time ago. And just paraphrased, right? But absolutely, these technologies have been there for the longest time. And a lot of that, like if people out there want scientific proofs, I'll give you an example. You had Phil Schneider back in 1993 or 94 talking about deep underground military bases.
Yeah.
More recently, they've had fellow YouTubers and podcasters showing earthquake maps around the world of perfectly at 10 kilometers deep in a line right where you could line up Phil Schneider's earthquake maps. Okay. And what does that tell you? A nuclear detonation or a warhead type detonation, nuclear notwithstanding, has a different signature apparently than an earthquake. And guess what? These all had more of a detonation signature all in a row at 10 kilometers deep across the Atlantic or underneath the Pacific or underneath, say, the US or underneath Europe. At certain times when you're seeing overflights on Monkey Works, he's broadcasting this on his channel. And then you've got Dutch Sense showing literally directed energy laser beams shooting down from the sky. So it's I'd say that technology's there. And unfortunately, instead of being used as a Star Trek future for our collective benefit, it's being used against us by rogue elements, not all elements of the government, by rogue elements who need to be brought to justice. And my feeling is, and certain other people probably, that now we're in finally a time where the reason why ufologists can stick their heads up without whack-a-mole is because some of the bad guys are, in the background being brought to justice, hopefully, God willing.
Yeah, it's like if they brought out this technology, how fast would that technology advance as well, put into the public arena? You know, take it out of the black op and put it in the public arena.
It would transform everything while it was destroying everything. Think about free energy. Think about having, in fact, there's the Strike Foundation. There's a bunch of very interesting technologies that are being developed. Most of them are based on just geometry. Strike Foundation is using multiple different geometric dodecahedrons and tetrahedrons and so forth into certain forms that, because of the forms that they are, and when they're put together, they generate energy by themselves. Essentially, that same kind of approach, but that same using the Merkabas as well, I think, are in some of them. They've got several. Yeah. But one of the things that they were talking about was Toyota was doing a contract with them, and they also had a contract in India to build prototypes to replace the combustion fuel engines in their cars. And then I just saw an article today that Toyota has now released. We've got this new engine that's going to completely blow away the EV market as it's currently known, because it's not based on batteries. It's based on continuous energy. So
I said, tear the bandage off. Don't just shoot the Band-Aid off.
Right.
Oh no, my Tesla stock's crater. I don't bring me the Star Trek future, guys.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that apparently is here now. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's in the electrical industrial utilities business, and he goes and sets up all the power and does all that stuff. So he's all into trying to figure out what's going on. And I said, well, energy is going to change. You're about to have in the next few years a cube that is perpetual energy that you can carry around with you. And he goes, I won't have a job. What will happen is, the entire infrastructure that's going to be replacing is going to have to be dealt with. It's not going to have, they're not going to leave it, because it'll be either repurpose it or they'll just destroy it. Get rid of it, replace it.
In Star Trek, do you see Scotty or Spock running around worrying about where they're going to eat or how they're going to have a roof over their head? No, because now you have a post-scarcity economy. And to be honest, given what we were talking about earlier about certain campaigns and stuff, we're going to need a lot of medical care. And right now, our birth rates are on the decline. So it's like, good. Oh no, help us, help humanity. Great.
Yep. Once us baby boomers are gone, mate, there's the world's population.
No one's going to know how to fix anything. Oh shit.
That's right. I mean, hey, no, but I want to debate on what we're just discussing right now. I've said it multiple times. Ben Rich and I were like pen pals. We called each other, talked once a quarter for over 20 years, almost 25 years. Just before he died, now this was Christmas, I think, 95. And I called him up. He was at USC Medical Center. He was dying of esophageal cancer, breathing all the nasty chemicals from all the solvents used in stealth. And then a lot of guys in that business, and they all have polyps. They all have problems with skin lesions and whatever. But we were talking about our old friend, the late John Andrews from Testers. He was like my big brother, and lost him to cancer. But Ben said, Jim, we have things out in the desert. And he wasn't referring to Area 51. He said, we have things out in the desert that's 50 years beyond what you can comprehend. And I personally can comprehend a hell of a lot. And he said, if you see movies like Star Wars or Star Trek, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort. I said, Ben, you want to expand upon that? Nope. And the bastard had the nerve to die on me about 10 days later. Broke my heart.
The crazy thing is, Jim, it's like when the first transistor radio came out in the late 50s, I mean, it was around about the 50s. It had 4 transistors in them. Now, over 28 million, right? Now, in such a, say, short time, relatively, it's just gone crazy. It's astronomical, how technologies move forward. Now, the thing that gets to me, we talk about free energy. The classic example for free energy, believe it or not, is the crystal radio. You remember the old crystal radio?
Oh, yeah.
You stick a pin in the ground, get an aerial, a little bit of crystal, you got your coil, and you can pick up the World News Service. It's electricity. Why haven't they tried to work and develop something on that? Because somewhere in there's a key. There's electricity. Why didn't science try to
ask Nikola Tesla? He could probably answer that question if he was here.
Why hasn't science hooked onto that? Kind of saying it's telling you something.
Actually, Terrence, I mean, and then after asking Nikola Tesla, let's ask guys like Greg Searle and all the people who were disappeared or whack-a-mole, as I like to refer to it. Okay,
Roller Rife, right?
The wet job.
For healing, Rife healing.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, and what's interesting about all these guys, they were all frequency based, and that's the technology and the knowledge, I think, that's been taken back and hidden from the rest of us. And they've used that technology and understanding to develop our own craft based on whether it's gravity, electrogravitics, whatever it might be, that's actually the physics behind it. But all that stuff has been around, and it's now it's like squeezing it out of the tube. It's coming out, and the reason that knowledge can now be shared is because of this technology and these platforms like we're doing here. I mean, the reach of the individual and the collective, the self-organizing collective, is taking over all of the content that's being produced and consumed. And it's just at the beginning of the wave. And that's why, like you were saying earlier, Brian, about, and Doc, you were saying the same thing. I'm tired of being pussyfooting around. I'm tired of using language that somebody is assigning to me that is completely different than it used to be, simply because they changed it. And that goes all the way into the ideology, which is the stuff that makes it that's the big architectural barriers and walls that are around getting through to the consciousness that becomes common sense when you simply look at it.
Well, now you just said the disqualifier, common sense. I don't think it exists anymore.
Yeah, we're screwed, guys.
I think it does, and more of it's coming out because people are getting information that they didn't have before. A lot of the walls and barriers, in my opinion, that are up are because of a conditioning of, it started with the whole thing of not how to think, but here's what to think, and this is the way you go. And these are the officials and the structures that give accreditation and validation and authority to whatever that subject matter is. Well, every one of them, it doesn't matter what it is, every domain of knowledge, science, medical, everything has been proven to be questionable at best and full of bullshit at best, because everything is being exposed. If you've got some 3-letter acronym tattooed to the ass end of your name, and you're also called an authority or an expert, you're the first one I'm going to be suspicious of, because I'm going to look at you and go, okay, show me some track record, because empirical data is the only way that I can make anyone can make an informed decision. I've got to have access to it, be able to observe it, analyze it, and come to my own conclusions on myself. Because I have done the previous that you guys suggested, where you follow the authorities. These are the ones that have the responsibilities. These are the ones that wear the coats and the robes and the hats and the pins and all the other bullshit. And they're the ones with all the stamped pieces of paper on their wall. Well, I don't know about you guys, but everything I've dove into, from biology to geology, from the terrestrial to the celestial, is every bit of information that I've been told is what isn't.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because I keep looking at it and they're going, wait a minute, you're telling me that 3 is 2? I only see 2. Where's this third one you're talking about?
And the main problem is too, Prof.
Sorry about the rant, gents. I had to get that.
No, the problem is too that people today are stereotyped. I mean, they go to school, everybody learns the same thing. You get a person that's homeschooled, right?
They're
more radical thinkers. And they develop their own talents, not what they've been told to develop at school. You know, in school you might. It's like that that rock band you sung. We was it Pink Floyd? You know, we ain't
Oh yeah,
got
we don't need no education.
Yeah, exactly right. Right. Everybody
Another
learns
brick in the wall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, you can actually go into the library, you can open up a book and say, oh, this is what we're going to learn at school tomorrow. You know, they've actually got the plan all laid out for you.
Well, there's an agenda there, and it's clear. The agenda, like if you guys talk about Agenda 2030, is to, you know, dumb down the masses, redefine, put in the
They've done a
culture
good
war.
job.
Oh,
They want lemmings.
Yeah, because and that's how you destabilize the countries. You eliminate the alpha males. Okay, you preach to the women that you're empowering them, but you're really undefending them by emasculating the males. They're destroying the economy. They're bringing in migrants, fine, but in a way that it messes with the native local culture. And then there you go. And that's a very clearly laid out agenda, whether it's the color revolutions or, you know, the culture wars with Bud Light.
hey, well, here's a classic one, Brian. Here's a classic one. I was actually talking to the professor earlier on today. Last week, I had so many calls calling me a bigot because I protest and run down the idea that why should transsexuals go into a class, what I call, I wouldn't say a he, she, I call it was a, what do you call them? A female
so very Australian
impersonator,
of you, Terrence.
right? Go into and tell 7-year-old kids how, hey, it's okay to be a girl. I mean, what is this? What is this? This is
Well, wait, no, that's perfect. That's perfect though, Terrence, because you raised the exact perfect example that I like to use too, to distinguish how I distinguish a bigot from someone asking a legitimate question. Because it's one thing to say it would be bigoted if you have a problem changing their gender as an adult or cross-dressing as an adult, but then to ask any normal, rational adult, that's fine. But why does that same cross-dressing or cross-gender adult have to go into a classroom and have an 8-year-old sit on their lap? Why does that have to be the case? And if they call you a bigot for that, well then, you know, you can agree to disagree, because I know where I stand on that line.
Well, I just tell them that and go and F off, you know, as far as I'm concerned. This is my language, guys.
But isn't that, Brian, isn't that a great example of the what we have? We've got cancel culture, we've got dismiss culture, we've got, you know, pushback culture, we've got all these different. Yeah, so there's all that, but basically every one of them is governed off of labels.
You know what's missing? You know what's missing? A good size full boot right up the backside.
Yeah. Here, hold on, guys. Let that be shared, Mr. B. Can you share that?
I didn't hear that.
As you guys were saying this, I was like, "This is the image in my mind."
I mean, it's so true.
That's the agenda. I mean, look, is the guy on the right from Cary Grant or whoever that is on the left? Is he going to stand up for the Constitution of the United States of America or whatever sovereign government that he's supposed to be a citizen under?
The one on the right or Cary Grant?
The one on the right. I know Cary Grant, what he'd do. We all know that. They already proved themselves.
Yeah. And today's kids don't know how to do anything.
It's all an app.
It's scary.
I mean, it's not even an actor. I mean, they're dumb. They're dumber than a bunch of rocks.
Well, that's because they have everything that we grew up. There was the sense of those individual components of character that define what is at least generally accepted as a reasonable citizen, a reasonable participant in society. Accountability, responsibility. You take care of your own shit, and you have to be a productive, positive member of society in order to be a part of it. And that had that responsibility, which also came as it developed a pride, I guess, in kind of a sense. And I've always, this whole Pride Month thing, I'm like, pride it seems like the wrong word for what you guys are trying to do, or at least what your message is. I think you might want to rethink that. It was kind of like the hashtag Me Too thing was like, wait a minute, that's a pound sign to us. Do you realize you guys just said pound me too, and you're complaining about being pounded? Anyway, there's all kinds of examples like that, I think, in the discourse and the social fabric that get rolled around and knocked together, and then certain groups come around and they say, this is our little pile of marbles, and that's what we call it, and you now must accept that. It's like, well, I've accepted you've done that, but that's not for me, so you keep it yourself. We're good. But the way in which you manipulate and get the masses into a collective thinking, so that they go in a certain direction and you heard them, that is the art of the psyop that has been used for millennia across all kinds of different civilizations. But the accelerated experience that we have of it now is that it's like this tsunami of just unbelievable crazy shit that you got to figure out how to put up at least a bubble, or you got to parry it off, and you got to make sure you don't get sucked up into that flow of crap that's rolling at you. And you sit there and you go, how can these people be that well, you could say stupid, but ignorance, I think, is acceptable because they don't know they've been conditioned.
Right.
They don't realize that what the reason they see things the way they do is because they've been conditioned. They've been manipulated into a mindset that keeps them from seeing the alternative. So it's like the ultimate in mind control in that sense, but they had to hit it from every angle. But I think the pharmaceutical component, the medication of, particularly in America, but around the world, and the way that whole model has evolved, particularly over the last 20 years, is extremely troubling at a minimum, and it looks diabolical and intended at the worst case, because it looks like there's been a concerted effort to do a bunch of manipulation to the consumption that we have. It doesn't matter if it's CO2 in the air, or if it's, your carbs, your keto, your chemicals, whatever it might be. There's a concerted effort to make sure that is accentuated by this industry that develops chemicals for specific outcomes. And they can be designed to do all kinds of manipulation, which there's a whole bunch of speculation. The body of work across that is like amazing that you can find out there. But that, to me, is part of what's being exposed. I think Bobby Kennedy's exposing that. Rogan has been on that. Russell Brand's all over it. Bill Maher's even turned on it. So the people that are creating content that a lot of people are listening to now are going, what? I've never heard that information before. I didn't know that. And so the walls kind of get picked and packed to where there's breakthroughs of information that come in, and you go, wait a minute. If you added this information to your current knowledge stack about that subject, do you think it would change any of the rest of that stack? Would you look at it and go, that one piece can change the way I'm looking at everything? Because I don't know about y'all, but that's happened to me over the last 10 years. Like, it just comes in waves. Like, wait a minute, I didn't know that. Whoa, look at this. And that ride is more fascinating than being stuck in a bubble and deflecting all the information that's available.
Yeah. But I like what Zach Mansour said, that they're waiting until they've reduced us, like the Georgia Guidestones, down to 500 million, but that's not going to happen. And my feeling is the reason why we're able to be having these discussions now, and like all this waves of information is coming out now, and why like guys like us can have access to information that it's almost like people in the government don't have this information. If they bothered to find it, they would, but they apparently don't for some reason.
It's the same people that our public indoctrination centers have dumbed down and have actually taught them not to look for an answer. We will supply the answer.
Yep.
You have to
limited hangout.
Yeah. You come to the almighty government person, and we have all the answers.
Yeah. I mean, these days it's funny watching the government spokespeople. I mean, they're pretty funny to watch when they're not falling all over themselves. So,
Brian, aren't you just in awe of the talent and the competence with which these government officials shared the information that we need to know that is official because it came from them. I'm blown away. I just look at it and go, wow.
All they're doing is backpedaling and double speaking, and it's obvious that they're not in control, and they don't know what they're doing. They're trying to prevent a panic. People who know what they're doing, I mean, they're voting with their feet. They're leaving states like California. They're leaving the very dense areas that they thought that they were going to, I don't know, their homes are going to double and triple forever in price until they became zillionaires, you know, and right now I think people are seeing through that. And this is a period of time where, in my opinion, I think the quote unquote bad guys, I see indicators that they're being rounded up behind the scenes. And that's why, you know, things that would have gotten me banned for saying it on, you know, on a Facebook post a year ago about, say, certain health data statistics, now that's not being banned. And I think that that's a really positive indicator. And so I think that's why it's a great time I'm so happy to be here on your show with you, Terrence, and all, because now's the time to kind of do that push for information around these gatekeepers who are trying to insist we pussyfoot and speak their language, and while we like ignore the same facts over and over.
I just want to say this: they're very patronizing.
Yeah. Actually, you know, this is.
Are you offended, Doc?
This is how I feel a podcast should be.
Just the dicks out there.
It shouldn't be a one-person thing. It should be a collective where we can just brainstorm, have different opinions. Hey, it's okay to agree to disagree. You know,
well, if I may, Terrence, because you're speaking about opinions, and you know the people that I'm meeting and I'm in touch with, and at least as far as I'm concerned, I vetted them. These are experiencers now. These are people who've been through it. They've been abducted. They've been in these underground military bases. They're from these bloodline families. You know, they survived some really nasty stuff, and that's why they haven't come out. It's because it's not fun to talk about on the air. It's not glamorous. A lot of them don't even like the term super soldiers, for example. And so just in terms of, just instead of like opinions, I want to say there are people out there with testimonies. They're survivors, and they're coming out of the woodwork. And so that's where, you know, we don't have to rely on our opinions anymore. There are people who've been through this, and their stuff is corroborating with people all around the world. And that's what's exciting to me, is we're beyond the opinion and speculation phase, at least for myself.
Well, with me, it's old school. And in my old school, used to tell me, everybody can't be right all the time, and everybody can't be wrong all the time. There's an average somewhere in there. There's a line that crosses, and that's where you've got to focus.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And what about you, Jim?
Well, I mean, I'll just go back to what you know, my buddy John Lear said about this stuff. He said he's been talking about UFOs, underground facilities. I knew the guy for 45 years before we lost him here last year, and a good example of how our government hides stuff, even in plain sight. As most of you know, I'm a Blackbird fanatic. That's to put it mildly. But the CIA version of the Blackbird, the A-12, Oxcart, Cygnus, whatever name you want to give it, it was retired 20 years before the Air Force admitted that there was a single place Blackbird built. I knew it long before that, but spit it out there, Mr. B. You were going to try to say something.
Yeah, just hold on a sec. Just for a moment, guys.
What was it?
Oh, you can't see it. There it is. It's behind it's behind it.
That's my A-12. I'm the only NCO in the United States Air Force that can scrounge a CIA Blackbird and 2 C-5s to move it. Yeah, and I got the entire Minnesota congressional delegation, 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans, all to agree. They've never agreed before or since, but I pulled that off. And my other claim to fame, and I got to say it every chance I get, I'm the only person on the planet that has been in the cockpit of a Blackbird at 33,000 feet at a Mach 0.72 inside another airplane. Yeah,
in a cockpit inside an airplane.
yeah, in the cockpit of the Blackbird. Yeah, and I landed
So
it.
it sounds kind of like an Indiana Jim kind of.
Well, I mean,
animal there.
That sort of goes along with my expedition.
Wait, but Jim,
in
Belize, you were in something carrying a Blackbird going Mach 7.2.
He was in a Blackbird.
Mach 0.72.
Okay, 0.72. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, no, that's fine. Okay.
C5. I was in here for 45 minutes.
Okay,
The seat was all the way down, but I had a wheel chock on the canopy because the counterbalance was out of nitrogen. And I opened it up. I had a 5-gallon bucket in there with a cushion already there. And I got in there, brought the wheel chock, put it between my legs, closed the canopy, and latched it. And sort of sat there 45 minutes. I mean, I just sort of sat there. This is quite amazing.
So wait a minute. You sat on a bucket with a cushion on it?
Yeah.
While you were in the plane. That was your seat?
Yeah. But, I mean, I was. That was my seat.
It could have come in handy in case, he had some, had to hit the head or something in the middle of the flight.
Turn the bucket around. Yeah.
Okay,
so I got a wrap on the bottom.
I just want to do my little advertising here. Okay, everybody, why don't you tickle that little fella down there? Give it a thumbs up and subscribe, eh? It helps the algorithms, doesn't it? Hey?
Yeah.
And I want to get these guys back more often too, because this is how podcasts should be. I mean, it's difficult, as you know. Doc, it's hard when you've got to use your imagination every bloody day.
It's exhausting.
Man. It's hard work. It really is hard work. But when you got a crew on like this, mate, I tell you something. It's wonderful just to sit back and enjoy my own show. It's beautiful. You know what I'm talking about, Doc? It's great, isn't it, mate?
Right.
That's how it should be. So, hey, guys, everybody, just like and subscribe, and hey, I love you forever.
Well, since we're like, let's see, did I just have it? Yeah. Since we're like, dropping stuff, can I just drop something real quick?
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
All right, hold on. Do this real quick. Just go ahead and say yeah on that. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is a webpage for Reparation for Ufology. So any ufologists out there that would like to join in this fight so we can get what is owed to us of years of torment, a loss of income, and shadow banning from Zuckerberg. By the way, Zuck, I'm voting for Elon at the UFC cage match fight that is being set up by UFC, and they are both in full, and it is exciting. So
that's going to be the fight of the century. That's
ground and pound, baby. Ground and pound.
Yeah, Dreyfus. Yeah, that's from Close Encounters.
Yes,
I just had to think about that for a second.
And look what's on the wall playing right now.
Oh well. So, hey, you'll have to show me how to do these tricks.
Was that a parental warning I saw on our show that went flashing by there?
Well, no, that's them trying to keep up with what we're saying.
Hey, Doc, book me in for an hour sometime during the week, will you, mate, and show me how to do this stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We can do that, but it's time. So if there's any law firms out there that would like to join our fight, because the government has money, all of our money,
lots of it.
None of it's theirs; it's all ours.
While it's still worth something.
Hey, I was listening to was it Ronald Reagan talking on an evening show? It's an old one, which was on YouTube there, and he actually said, even if the government just went for a walk and disappeared for 3 weeks, the public wouldn't know.
This is true.
They wouldn't know. They just wouldn't know. He says the government. He actually admitted the government does nothing. It's the people that do it.
California, they'd be happy. Leave the people alone. Jeez.
Well, then you have Washington State. They now have the most expensive gas because Mr. Weasley Inslee added 47 cents, not total 47, 47 additional cents in per gallon.
Mm.
And I miss Seattle. I miss the
Kill
Seattle that I
trucking.
Hey
remember.
guys,
Gonna
tell
kill
me,
trucking.
hey, this presidential dinner the president just had, it's over $1,000 a plate. Who actually paid for that?
Not me.
Keep corporations who want a tax write-off.
Now
I'm
listen.
the
Now,
one washing
now
dishes.
listen. If you were in the stock market, right?
I am in the stock market.
Okay, you're in the stock market. You'll be
I
up
am
for
in the stock market.
Hey, okay, you'll be up for inside trading. Am I correct?
For what? If what?
Taking money off your
Oh,
sponsors.
those guys, Congress. Well, see, they have these funny, great things called ethics waivers. I think Pelosi would know a thing or two about that.
Yeah, but the point is, taxpayers should pay for the elections, equal time, equal money. Now, donations are only acceptable at, say, maybe $50. It's a max,
It's very Australian of you.
right? $50
But they took
max,
your gun,
right?
so
5 or 10. But when you're talking about a corporation giving them millions, right? And I mean, they're not going to give you millions and not expect something back in return. They're
Well,
going to
this has
want
been
something.
this has been a part
That's
of
like
the
inside
whole.
training. That's inside trading, in my opinion. That's
Well,
corruption.
it's clearly a violation of something that makes any kind of sense as far as a positive motivation, like a free market kind of model. So I want to toss this little turd out there and let's bang it around a little bit.
Throw the clean end. Throw the clean
Now
end.
it's going to be the clean end, and you can all each pick it up by the clean end.
Yeah.
But posit this. So right now, we just talked about, how it doesn't matter what part of the government structure that it currently is. There's nothing that is working correctly. It's just it's become it's overgrown itself, and it's got all kinds of just inadequacies in the processes and the systems, redundancies out the ass, a whole bunch of shit that's not needed, and a whole bunch of people that are not needed to do it. So taking the Elon Musk model of when he purchased Twitter, and he scaled it back 80%. He took out of all of the infrastructure, and not only continued to function, but it made improvements. And there's not a lot of people complaining unless they're complaining about what somebody had to say about somebody. But outside of that model, will you say something, Doc?
Come on, Doc, spit it out.
That model of process improvement, okay, is something that I spent a lot of time and energy on in my technology days, because I built enterprise-wide applications. So my stuff was installed all over the planet, which enabled me to travel all over the planet, which was really cool. But that system, the way those things were made, had to go through business process engineering. So here's the turd I'm going to put out there. Business process reengineering or engineering is about taking a system, figuring out how to make it better. That's first principles thinking. That's what Elon Musk does in all of his businesses. There's a great clip out on YouTube with Lex Friedman where he talks about what first principles thinking is and how he's applied it to all his businesses. And that's whether you like them or not, they all seem to be running okay. So he's got to have a team.
Can I speak to that? Because I worked for a couple of years. I worked for Tesla, full disclosure, and sold the cars. I own the cars, got the solar and all that.
Yeah.
Part of it with Elon is he's kind of already on the shoulders of giants. I like Elon, but I don't like the fact that he's played both sides. My feeling on Twitter is that he was made to buy Twitter because to make good on some of the bad side of the fence. That's my personal analysis and appraisal. That's just me. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you want to take me to discover Elon? Let's go. But
I had a chance to see how Elon does business from the viewpoint of someone who's been in manufacturing. I've done a lot of different things.
That's wonderful.
And Elon I sent him my Blackbird book, and he invited me. He had a secretary call me and invite me for a tour at SpaceX. And because of my wife having cancer, me thinking I was going to die just before that, and then COVID and everything else, everything got screwed up. But finally, on February 22nd this year, I took Michael Schratt, who's like my kid, and Joel Christopher Payne, who's a hell of a guy and a hell of an artist. And the three of us with Robin Hyde, who's a buddy of mine I've known for about almost 50 years. And we had a tour of SpaceX. And there are no opaque walls except where you physically have to have them. Everything is wide open. The cafeteria, I mean, it's as good at a buffet that you'll find anywhere. And everything is done with your ID card. When you come in, you go out. He doesn't care when you come in, as long as you get the job done in the time allotted. And if he can find a way to do it faster, he'll reward you for it. I mean, if the super heavyweight would have been a NASA project, that whole place would be shut down for 5 years. They do an analysis of the concrete of why it did this, and and we lost out of the 33 engines. 7 of them didn't light because they were hit with debris. It was
so. So what he did is he innovated, right? He innovated to make that possible. That what you saw there.
Yeah, and Elon said, my only goal on this was lifting off the platform. Once it cleared the platform, everything else was a bonus.
Right. And so people laugh at it and they're wondering if the stock's going to tank. My criticism of Elon isn't he's great at first principles. He's great at manufacturing. SpaceX is amazing. Full disclosure, I've got a little bit into the IPO there, right? But really for me, it was working under him on the sales side, making promises and, going one way and another. The way I think he treated some of us as a sales force, I'm not happy about, but that's a longer gripe. And it's not for here, they're there. But really, it's there's the good part I'd like to model would be the first principles stuff. The things about over promising, like personally, I would have called it co-pilot and not autopilot. How's that?
That makes sense to me.
Can I have your view on this?
No, you're Australian.
Come on. Thanks, Jim.
You just repointed me to the turd, but I'll let you.
Now, listen. If Elon brings out this Neuralink, now does that mean we're going to be all Wi-Fi ready? We're going to be connected.
You've seen that.
I mean, let's get serious here.
I know.
Will we, if we had Neuralink we had these implants, we would be able to communicate with each other with thought?
Oh, Jesus. There'd be a lot of people at my door with pitchforks and torches.
Obviously, the Facebook now every 5 seconds.
No more secrets.
That's an interesting.
Well, we already, Terrence, we already have viewers. There are already viewers out there who know we have that technology where they don't necessarily have to install something like chip in your brain. They already have voice to skull technology.
Yep.
That speak to us. And then they already have, I guess would be a takeoff of like fMRI technology, magnetic resonance imaging, to then read our thoughts. Now the chip in the brain, that's just your direct acquiescence and you can get the best updates.
Yeah. Because they actually use the sound to skull back in the 90s for advertising for an A&E ghost show when ghost shows were just starting up. And the billboard was up on a big city apartment building way up high. And as you would walk down the sidewalk, there would be this section you would walk through and you'd hear, don't look up. It's okay. You're not hearing things. Stuff like that. People would be like stopping and looking around. They're talking. It's not me. It's not you. And it would get them to look up and they see this billboard way up there for this ghost show. And that was in the 90s. Yeah. So, I mean, that stuff's been around for a long time.
Like Ben said, if you've seen movies like Star Trek or Star Wars, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort.
Yeah.
So I just remembered the turd. Thank you very much for the pause and the conversion there. Let me throw this little turd on the table and see how this nugget knocks around. So we were just talking about how shit's not working, the bureaucracy, the systems. It doesn't matter, the government, the establishment systems, the legislative, and even obviously the financial and all of that. All of that shit's broke.
It turned into the DMV.
It's all broke.
I
mean,
Professor, hey, you know what
Yeah.
we say in Australia? It looks like shit. It smells
Smells
like
like
shit. It tastes like shit. Lucky I didn't step in it.
Yeah.
Hey, this
So-
guy's Australian, everybody. Full disclosure, he doesn't represent the rest of us. It's
Yeah,
not
the views
Not
expressed by the
right.
host.
Hey, listen,
The views
mate,
expressed by the host on
hey,
this
if
show
you're
do not
expecting me to
represent
hold
anything
back
like
my
reality,
P's
let alone
hey,
what we
if
agree
you're-
with.
Hey, my P's and Q's come out, mate. I'm a freak expressive bird.
Hey, but if I was single and a young man, I would bust my butt to move to Sydney.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
sp-
my
I s-
home city. That's where I was born, in Sydney.
I spent 3 weeks there, and I have never seen so many gorgeous women. I mean, not even close. Not even
Hey,
close.
hey,
I mean,
Jim,
I guess there's a large Greek population.
I'm going to
there.
tell you a little story, mate. Back in 1982, I used to work at the Prince of Wales Hospital in Randwick in Sydney. I was an orthopedic technician. There was 150 men worked there and 5,000 women. All
Jesus. I love the odds.
It was like I was like a kid in a lolly shop.
Wait. What? Where? Because
Where is it?
I have to send them
Are
an
they hiring?
application
Are they hiring
for work? Yeah.
I need to pin that in my map.
Yeah, it was so dominating. Back then, the hospitals were dominated by women. You know.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Hey, I have a question for Doc. I was going to call you today, and then Mr. B said, "We're going to be on the air. You're going to be on the air with Robert. Would you like some company this weekend coming up? Not the not this weekend, but the following weekend. This
absolutely.
week's shot.
I think.
I'll book a flight. Hey, how about that?
No, I'm usually good with it. Actually, I had Christopher LaPrath here, a psychic. He was here this weekend, and had a cinematographer from the movie Super Size Me. That movie where the guy ate all the McDonald's for 30 days. So, and then,
do we have some new pics coming, Doc? Have you got some new stuff that you just shot that we?
Oh, not that I've shot, but
Hey, by the way, guys, on the 22nd next month, I've got Preston Dennett coming on the show.
Yeah,
sweet.
I'll
have his book.
On August 10th to 15th, we're going to be going doing a tour to Montauk with some of the Montauk survivors, and that's supposed to be a 40-year reemergence of the USS Eldridge off of Oyster Point on the north side of Long Island.
What?
So if you want to be there and you want to document it, Doc, we love to have that.
When is
August 10th to August 15th.
Oh,
well, you've got a cell phone. Hey, you got a cell phone, Brian. Go live, and we'll go live.
Okay. Okay, I like that, Terrence.
You can be the man on location.
I have this magical wall. Whenever I write on it, shit happens. So hold on.
Yep. All right.
Don't forget join my friend.
Find me on Facebook through Terrence's account. He's our nexus point here.
What's this?
Yeah, you have to send me your contact after the show.
Yeah, because these super soldiers and Montauk survivors and Stranger Things people that I talk about, they're real. You get to meet them and film them and get their story out. They need to be told.
See, there's a lot of things I know, but there's a lot of stuff I don't know, and I'll be honest about it. You know, I'm a truth seeker, and that's what I'm doing. Look, I'm just an experiencer, abductee. That's me.
Yeah.
That's
so you already know. You're a knower.
That's my realm.
I feel that I'm being cheated. I have never seen something I couldn't explain.
Me, mate.
Wait a minute. Do you see who you're on a show with, Jim?
Yeah. I mean,
can you explain any of this that's going on here?
I mean,
we'll take you around. We got places to show you stuff.
Well, I can honestly say what's going on here is good chemistry. You know, we got a good combination.
I used to go out. I used to go out in the desert, either around outside of Rachel on the north fence line of Area 51 or the fence line at Tonopah Test Range.
On a horse with no name.
Yeah, John Lear and I were the first guys on top of Whitesides. Glenn Campbell and I helped find Freedom Ridge, and they've taken those away. But I've been out there and I can look up when I had decent eyes. I've had cataract surgery, so I can see better now in distances. But I know where I was out there with Stu Brown from Popular Science, and I looked up there and said, "Oh, there's an Su-22." Oh, how can you tell? I said, "I can." So he took a picture of it, blew it up. Oh, it's an Su-22.
That's Soviet, isn't it?
Yeah. The Red Hats were flying it. We have a whole Russian, or at least one off of most everything. I sat in the MiG-29C that came from Moldova, which is nuclear capable. They gave them all up, and I sat in a MiG-27, 15, 17, 19, 21. They were rumored they were going to get a Foxbat, but they had to give Lukashenko's airplane back, but it was in pieces.
MiG-29 Foxbat.
The MiG-25 Foxbat.
25, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so my flight simulator days.
Yeah. And I posted it on somewhere on Facebook yesterday or today or something. Somebody asked me about the B-2. I flew the simulator here in 2015 for 2.5 hours. That just tickled the hell out of me. And as I was coming in for my first touch and go, George up in the control booth set off 5 10 megaton nukes all around Whiteman Air Force Base. Big flash, screen goes black. And and literally you're being bounced all over the place. Finally it settles out and the screen's starting to come back. Now, if you're in a nuclear environment, they put a face shield on that looks like stormtroopers. Mm-hmm. And the guy who designed it is a big Star Wars fan, so it figures. But it takes a nanosecond or two for it to go opaque.
Big black shield.
Yeah, and we're out of the area, and I'm flying the damn thing. And I looked at the instructor pilot and said, "Hey, I got a question." I said, "What's that?" And they said, "Can I drop one?" Oh, no, that's a classified system. But where would you drop it? I said 1,600. He said, "Stop right there. Everything in this simulator is taped." I know what you meant, but
1,600 feet would give you an air burst to generate an electromagnetic pulse.
Well, most of the nukes are designed to detonate at least 1,500 feet. That one, it does the most damage, and the EMP scattered a little bit farther.
Mm-hmm. What about the neutron bomb, Jim?
Pardon?
The neutron bomb.
Carter killed it. President Carter killed it.
Well, that's supposed to be was it low orbit bomb, wasn't it?
Well, no. What it was a gamma. I think it was gamma ray bomb. There was really not much of a detonation, but in a radius of maybe 100 miles. Maybe smaller, depending on density of buildings. Everything that was organic was sterilized.
Yeah, or not just that. Or they got liver cancer or whatever. And over the periods of months, people died. Yeah,
and everything that had ones and zeros all went to zeros. So, and he felt, but no, because they would kill all the bacteria. The bodies wouldn't bloat. I mean, the bodies would be just the way they were when the bomb went off, because it doesn't do any damage. And he said that was too inhumane.
Well, here's something you just brought to mind. I was reading a story. Was it yesterday? There's a lake in China, South China, and it's got a fungi, which is a lot of bacteria in it, and it's methicillin resistant. In other words, antibiotics do not stop, and it affects your respiratory. And I don't. Did you read about that, Brian, at all?
I mean, I've just heard about them popping up with all sorts of nasty bugs all over the world for us to be afraid of. So I wouldn't be surprised about that. And then with super bugs, that's been a huge problem. But now with a lot of people who may potentially have compromised immune systems, I can totally see that being part of the narrative, if you will.
I do know with the ice sheets melting down in Antarctica, that the thermofrost and it's all these new bacteria are coming out, which is they reckon be worse than what's that's going around now. So
they had a thing, and you briefly had it up. It's a very strange looking building at the South Pole, and they have what 5,200 spheres in there that they've lowered down up to 2 miles, I believe, or that, very deep. And they're trying, when they turn the system on, what they're trying to do is they're trying to measure. Is there a way to measure dark energy or dark
Is that the
matter?
neutrino detector, Jim, that you're talking about at Antarctica?
I think it is. I talked to the couple that was there at the South Pole, and the guy that was sort of in charge of it. And he said when they turned it on, that's when they had the moment they turned it on, it triggered the earthquake in Christchurch.
Well, have you heard of Eric Hecker? He's recently been in Washington, D.C. to speak to this. He went there. He talks about, like, the joke is he was only a plumber, but he got to go to that station and that detector. And apparently he's saying it's a lot more than what they say it is. It's more than just to detect.
I had him on my show about 2 years ago, I think, 2 or 3 years ago.
Well,
and then when I saw him at the UFO thing, the national press thing, I was like, "Wow, okay."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, apparently they might have
didn't really say much, did he? That it's like it looks like he held back a bit.
Well, they might have activated it while his team was standing in base over it, so they might have been zapped. And I understand members of his team, one may have died and another is sick, and it's not good. It's definitely, I'm glad he's getting the truth out there, and my prayers are with him.
Yeah, where now, and for the life of me, I can't recall the guy's name. I have his card, but he was he was in charge of everything. And I said, well, I was up at Kitt Peak, and on the 2.1 meter telescope, Caltech was looking for exoplanets, and they're and studying dark, and at the same time trying to get a handle on what dark energy is. Oh, that's your baby. Oh, I have one that's very similar to that. She's a rescued German Shepherd.
We got more than one here, but I figured this is some production here.
I would have more than one, but
we have 5.
Yeah.
We got 9, but don't tell anybody that.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Yeah. So
mine goes up and down because I breed. So, right now
no, he doesn't necessarily breed, but
not me personally. They're a lot more lucky than I am.
They nailed some college professor for breeding. I mean, they caught him on video and everything, I guess. I mean, that's.
But you still love me, don't you, baby? I've got my microphone. He loves me.
Yeah. I just.
All right, so I can remember now that I was trying to toss a turd, and instead it was a shiny object, and everybody chased shit all over the place. So I'm going to bring it back to the turd because I think this will be interesting.
What is it, you and turds?
Well, it's a metaphor. I mean, it's potentially a shitty idea, but I wanted to throw it out there. So, as we were talking about, systems are broken. They don't work. They got to be fixed. They can't be fixed. They need to be replaced. So, since all of the rage is about artificial intelligence, and there's all this, I mean, if you're not talking about AI or you're not playing with AI, then you are no B. Okay, you have to, you're touched by it all the time. When in fact, I've been in tech for over 40 years. I started back with the key punch machines. I was a service tech, and I used to keep those things running so they could punch the holes in the cards, and the cards could put in the machine and print out the paper. And all of the systems, everything that we've been through and as we started with and then has morphed, were expert systems. They were designed to do a specific task and aid in the efficiency and productivity of doing that task. Okay. Just simple, again, first principles kind of thing. Well, if AI is basically an expert on this, that, or the other, because that's all it is. AI is a bunch of data that's been carefully crafted and curated with a language that is used to go through and mine it. That's all it is. It is not something that will ever have any kind of, this is my opinion, there's no way you can put sentience of the experience that we have from consciousness into hardware and software. You don't, that's an organic thing. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Bob Lazar would agree with you.
So that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But here's what I was trying to get to. Now I'll throw the turd and spin it around. What if AI, if it's so powerful, especially all the elites and the experts and those that have the stamped ass names and the pieces of paper and all the other shit, if they're all saying that for the most, you're going to have to do it, it's already here. Well, I argue it's already been here for fucking decades. All of the time that we've been using software and computers has been just a continual evolution of expert systems. Your email system, your word system, your graphic system, your video system, what we're doing right now, each one of those are just evolutions of that technology. It just keeps going. And if that model works so well, if it's definable, repeatable, dependable, all of the important things of something being successful when you put it together and it works. If AIs can go through and figure out what the best way to do that is, then why wouldn't you have a government systems or a legislative systems or a scientific systems or a medical systems AI that says, all right, go figure out the best way to sort through this information and tell us the best way? That could potentially be the end result of the people that are trying to control the rollout of this new technology that everybody's going, well, it's all new. No, it's been around for decades. It's just the next evolution of it.
Can I take a crack at this? Because I love your question. I want to try answering it. It's the people in charge who are programming the AI, who are running the servers, who can pull the plug or make sure it's fed. Okay, it's really about their prerogative, because at the end of the day, what AI is good at is like generative solutions-based things, but what it's not good at is soul-based evolution and the greater good of humanity.
You can't program that.
You can't program that.
No.
At least not yet.
So let's give AI.
I don't think there will be. I don't think that the consciousness that we experience that animates our materium, that is the interaction with this physical experience we're having, that consciousness is completely separate from that. It just inhabits this. It is a separate entity of the existence of reality unto itself, and it is not dependent across its existence of any one iteration. It is a continual iteration, a cyclical part of just reality and nature. Consciousness, if consciousness creates everything, it appears to have common attributes and characteristics. It's constantly creating. That's why the whole idea of the conservation of matter and energy is being questioned because of Dirac's equations and the way that other people looked at it and said, no, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. The observation says this: dark matter. There is no evidence for dark matter or dark energy. Yet it is now, because of the need to make up for an observational inadequacy or error that they weren't counting on, they had to invent something. Well, how much do you need? Well, just enough to accommodate your observation. There is no evidence of any of those two things.
Well, if I may, right? Maybe they're misnaming it dark energy and dark matter, but other people would argue that there's something called 0 point energy.
Well, that's Dirac. That's Dirac's equation.
And the way that you've got like these ships flying around is they utilize something called MFDs, magnetic field disruptors, to then generate enough energy or harvest enough 0 point energy to then drive the anti-gravity engines. And that explains why ships can zip around at Mach 25 and then like make right angle or 150 degree turns.
Exactly right. And see, my position and what I'm seeing is that I think that our physics there are parts of it that are correct, but most of it is wrong because
Our
it is
physics sucks.
looking in the wrong place for the wrong information for the wrong reason.
It's
I
bad.
think our real physics is frequency physics, and I think that's what's going to change the way that everything is looked at. Everything is a frequency, and that's even, they say from the quantum mechanics and the physics, that realm, and through string, everything's a vibration. Well, yeah, that means that its frequencies vibrate. Okay, well, apparently everything exists based on that. So if you, and this is what Tesla did, this is what Schauberger did, this is Walter Russell did this, John Keeley back in the 1880s and 1890s. That understanding, the simplicity of it, is what I think the ancients knew. I think that explains a lot of the anomalous material things that we can't explain with what we know now. All of the megaliths and the places and the energies and the ley lines and the readings. The more telemetry you get, which is the information about whatever it is you're observing, the more telemetry you have, then the more informed and understanding you will have of whatever that is. And so this whole James Webb thing is a perfect example of that. They're out there looking at infrared, and they are picking up shit that you don't see in the regular spectrum they were looking at. So that information, right? That information.
It's 10,000 years old, these rocks, carbon dated. Okay? They're like magnetically attracted to each other. If I get them close, they draw to each other. Okay? If I have them in the right conformation. And these have alien glyphs and aliens, and a lot of these other rocks, they'll depict people kneeling and trying to hold their babies up to the alien UFOs in the sky, while there's like fire or like earthquakes around them and stuff.
Are those the ones that were found down in northern Mexico? That looks like the same art.
Yeah, a lot of these are found they're found in Mexico, and expeditions have been mounted by my friends Josh Sisler and Anthony Mickle with the blessings of the local tribes people. And so they're not like treasure hunters. They're there to help explore and curate, get these out to people who will share the knowledge and take good care of them. Yeah.
That's awesome. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That was so I'll finish my rant here. I think that the whole thinking of the way reality is going to be altered and simplified, but will have its own complexity because it'll make things more understandable, or at least resonate. If you have information about something, that information is a frequency. It has its resonance, and that doesn't change other than it's getting added to or deplete or distracted from as it goes along, but separate road. But look at that.
Yeah. Amazing, isn't it?
No, look, and that's got an alien face in it. Like the rock morphogenetically took it as a shape.
Wow.
So have you talked to anyone who's sensitive, Doc? And have they said, "Oh, I get a vibe off it," or what it's trying to say? What do you get off of it? You're muted. You're muted.
Click your blick.
At least I'm courteous. My coffee, don't hear me farting and stuff. I found this over 20 years ago, and I've kept it with me, and it's been like my little Jiminy Cricket. But I do have this.
Sweet.
And I need to grab a light. Hold on one sec.
Yeah, and while I was doing that, we're seeing those artifacts, and then this new information's coming out, and the paradigms are shifting. I think it's what you're speaking to there. And they really are. You mentioned earlier, Terrence. All these remote viewers coming out of the woodwork. Well, yeah, they are. The Gateway Project files have been declassified. The Monroe Institute is out there with HemiSync. You can go to YouTube. Pardon me. You can go onto YouTube and have the Gateway experience and do remote viewing or astral projection for yourself. And hey, disclaimer: be careful. read up on it and all that, and make sure you're under good conditions and good settings, and you hopefully know what you're doing. But these are the days when anybody can do remote viewing, and there are some people who are pretty darn good at it. Like, they're really good at it.
Oh, of
And
course.
so, like,
I believe there are some good remote viewers out there, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of charlatans too. That's the thing. You've got to beware.
When I was growing up, my Sicilian grandmother could visualize what was happening to my grandfather, who was a fisherman. Now, he was in the San Francisco Bay Area, in Pittsburgh, California. It's a little shitty river town.
East Bay.
And he was in charge. Nana was in charge of all the Italian, Sicilian, and Portuguese fishermen from San Francisco to San Pedro. And he would go up. They'd be gone for 5 months. They're going up to Alaska and fish. And my grandmother was the matriarch of the clan. And wives would come up and say, Angelina said, Giuseppe says, is he okay? And you know how much is going to be in his pay envelope. And she says, I will ask my great aunt in my dreams tonight. Next day, the lady's coming over and he says, Giuseppe's okay. He's going to have $291.14 in his pay envelope, and he's healthy, and they should be home soon. And she was never, no one ever accused her of being wrong. When my grandfather, they were anchored, but they were pulling in nets. You're pulling in by hand, and the feeling was the water's at 34 down to about 28 degrees. The only reason it doesn't freeze is salt water, and you have 60-foot tides. So you have a 15-knot current. He falls overboard. That's it. You're dead. They don't even go looking for you. And Nana woke up at about 3:00 in the morning screaming, Papa has fallen overboard. Papa has fallen overboard. He said, but all of them she stopped. She says, he's okay. He caught his foot in the net. So she wrote it down on the calendar. And when my grandfather, when the whole fleet finally come back, and they've been gone 5 months, we're talking 1901, 1902 time frame. No internet, no radio, no TV, no communication whatsoever. And my grandfather says, something, you almost lost me. And Nana says, on this date, you were in such and such a place fishing, and you caught your foot in the net. I saw it.
Strange you mentioned that, Jim. My uncle Bill, he was a merchant seaman during the Second World War, and his ship got sunk. Nobody knew what was happening or anything. Anyway, his mother, my grandmother, turned around and said, "No, he's fine. He's got, I can see him with a blue blanket wrapped around him." And she said there was a was a HR or something like that on it, whatever the royal signature on it. Anyway, he came home with that blanket. She knew he was okay. Yeah, he came home with the blanket.
Yeah, because they can see it. It's like, there you go. It is a wow, and they can see it. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a personal story. Back in 1990, I was just finished a night shift, and all day long, something's wrong. Something's really, really wrong, and it's just kneeling at me. So I called around to every family member. Are you okay? Are you okay? Yep, everybody was fine. My mother was fine. My father was fine. Everybody was fine. That night, I got a call over the radio in the vehicle, and says, "Hey, you better call home." So I called home and said, "Your mum's in hospital." And I said, "Oh, I'll come down now." I said, "No, she's all right. She's sitting up in bed. She's fine." Well, come 6 o'clock, I was by her bedside, and she was just sat up in bed laughing and cheerful, and like there was nothing wrong with her, And then my brother Paul walked in, and she said, "I've seen all my boys now, and she was wonderful, and she was talking and everything else." And then she said, I'm feeling a little bit tired. So I puffed the pillows up for her and I put my arm on her and I sat her up in the bed a bit more and let her rest back. I had my right arm around her neck, her left hand in my left hand. Within 15 seconds, I just turned around and I said to my brother, go and get the nurse, will you please? He says, why? I said, get the nurse. She just closed her eyes. I said, get the nurse, please. The nurse came in. She put the stethoscope and said, your mother's passed. It was so quiet, so peaceful. But yet, my brother turned around and says, how did you know?
I mean, the human mind can do amazing things. With my same Sicilian grandfather he had prostate cancer. He was blind with cataracts, as he couldn't sit still for 8 days or whatever it was back then, around in the 1910, 1920s. And he was given 6 weeks to live. And my mother didn't know this. My mother was the youngest, and she was the favorite of the 5. 17 months later, almost 15 months after he was supposed to be dead and buried, he's in a nursing home. He's putting his own catheter in because he's not going to let anybody touch his willy but him.
Did not need to have that image. Thank you, Jim.
Yes.
Come on. I've got to tell the story. Come on, leave him alone. Come on.
And my mother wasn't scheduled to be there, but all of a sudden, it turned out all the family members were getting together. And she came over to the nursing home, and as she walked into the doorway, my grandfather had his back to the door. He said, "Conchetta," says, "you're finally here. Now I can relax." And he was live for the 2 weeks Mom was there. He left. Within about 12 hours, he passed. But he wasn't going to die until he saw my mother. And Mom had waited 5 years. I think he would have lived another 5 years, because the human mind is an absolutely incredible thing.
Sorry, Jim.
Yeah.
Continue,
Jim. When I was going in for brain surgery, it was pretty dramatic. My chances of survival were what they call piss poor. I had a tumor about the size of a golf ball in the middle of my head. And I was 40 years old. And it's really amazing when you're told that you're going to die. Or good chances are really good. But it doesn't hit you for 36 hours. It was like someone, hey, you lost your valve stem cap on your car, on your front wheel. I mean, that was the emotional effect it had on me until about 9:15 on a Tuesday night. I found out on early Monday morning, and it hit me. I was 40 years old. I was going to die. And it took me 4 hours to drive 3 miles. And my ex-wife-to-be was great, and we're very close today. And I mean, I was a puddle. And as the second hand's going straight up at 3 a.m., it was like someone changed channels. All of a sudden, I had a peace come over me. And my feeling was, if this is the end, I have no regrets. And there's nothing I would change. Because if you change anything, everything changes.
Remember what Mark Twain said, there's nothing to fear with death, because millions of years have gone by before I existed.
Yeah. So, but as I was laying on the operating room table, I was at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And Dr. Harner was the ENT doctor, and he's checking my vitals. And my pulse was 52. My blood pressure was 105 over 65. And he said, "Jim," said, "you're not very nervous." I said, "Doc, I'm at Mayo Clinic. If you can't fix me, no one can. And if you fuck up, I'll never know it. Give it your best shot." And he just started laughing. He said, going into this type of surgery, because I was under anesthesia for 11 hours. He said, going into this type of surgery, 40% of success in that surgery is in your head. And I went in there I can't be in any better hands than Mayo Clinic. And 11 hours later, when they were lifting me off the operating room table after the gurney, I was about a 0.5% conscious, and I wasn't sure if that was the slab that's going to the morgue or into recovery, and I didn't know. But I don't remember hardly anything in recovery. But when we got to intensive care, I helped get out of the bed. I had 2.5 inch hole in the back of my skull, and 135 stitches, and headaches for 37 years. I still have them, but I'm not dead. That's more important.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing in disguise that you were only 40, because that would probably help your survival rate. You're much hardier than if you were older trying to go through that ordeal.
Yeah.
And I'm not a doctor. I only play one on YouTube.
And excuse me for a moment. Hey, Doc, what have you got planned in the wind over the next whatever? What's happening with the movie? And
well, what country are we scaling the word whatever?
Well,
it's kind of broad.
Well,
give us some context.
Well, my nephew, I won't say anymore, but my nephew said he will get back to me. But again, how's your writing going, mate? For the movie?
Well, things are moving along. I don't want to say too much because it's starting to get good. I can. Hey,
Brian, maybe you'd like to invest in his movie, mate.
Yes. Yeah. If you want to be a producer, executive producer, something like that, just go to flythemovie.com. That's where you want to go. And all the information about the film is there, storyline and whatnot. If you would like to, throw down some dough for it, email me, and then I'll give you a code to get into the, shareholder stuff. So that's going on. We've got some other big things that are going on up here in the mountain that happened this week. I can't say anything yet, and it's killed. Yeah, that's the thing about what I do is I've had to the past few years learn to do this. Yeah. I'm really good at teasing people about it.
He's into white slavery, but we won't tell anybody.
The trouble is you do things for people and they let you down big time, and that sucks, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? Careful. When the good stuff happens, though, it'll be so much sweeter and appreciated more. Whereas people that like me in my early years, in my 18 to 28 period, going around acting and working for all the big names, it just kind of fell in my lap, and then when it disappeared, I didn't truly appreciate it like I should have, the opportunities I was given. And now, going through all the struggle and with all the conniving people or the the swindlers or scammers, whatever, it's I've finally have joined forces with an amazing crew of people, and we're about doing stuff you can take your family to, but still badass. And so we have that going on, and just everything's just so fresh. I don't know. I know I can't say much, but I don't know what I can say.
I know I love you.
I can tease that we connected with a producer from one of the big studios this weekend by fate. It was like a tsunami of synchronicity. All of these individuals all coming. Sorry, I'm screaming in the mic. Coming together, and talking about these projects, and all of them being whimsical about it and excited. And where I'm at, there's not a lot of that. Like you would get to see, where you can get a bunch of people that are hyped up and do a movie for free just so they can do it, right? That doesn't happen up here. But when you find these people and we're finally bringing them together, kind of creating an alliance, you might say. I like to say more like a George Lucas type family. And as we get these great members of cast, crew, and all that, we'll hold on to them. And let's just say there's going to be a lot more films made up here in the coming next couple of years. So we're really excited about that. And Travis Walton keeps saying, he's wanting to redo Fire in the Sky, where it's more 100% accurate, not 60%
Yeah, that'd
Hollywood.
be cool. That'd be good.
And that would be the benefit of it. Would be we could do flash forwards and flashbacks, and flash forwards today would be him playing himself, and his son, Luke, who is an amazing actor. They're both the most calm, cool, collected people I know, and so kind and generous. And the first time I saw his son act, it was at a junior college or community college out here, and I was so used to that Travis Walton persona, because they're like twins. He looks identical to Travis in 1970.
So he can play his father.
Perfect.
Yeah, because when I saw him start acting in this play, he literally just transformed to somebody you just wouldn't expect, and that what's made it even better. So in the flash forwards, they could use the science that they've discovered, like the core samples of the trees, how the one sides of the trees facing the little opening area, how they've expanded, and just on those sides from supposed the radiation. And another reason why he doesn't give out the location so people don't mess with it, because they've been collecting scientific data over the years. But incorporate that all in there, and then also go in more depth. If we could do it in like a Netflix series or something like that, that would be awesome, because we could go in more depth into each of the participants of this event, more detail. So stuff like that we're working on. Of course, third phase of Moon, Cousins Brothers, they keep popping over here every now and then when they're traveling around the country making their documentary films.
Kill brain cells.
Yeah. And what else we got? We've got another movie that we'll be shooting up here, written by Dalia Faulkner, and her mom was the festival up here. They did the movie #Blessed, which is on Amazon and Tubi and other places. But it came out at Christmas, and the whole movie was shot up here. It was the first movie to be shot up here. And we're going to do the second one called The Christmas Witch this holiday. And then hopefully in June, all thing works, the end of the world doesn't happen, then we're going to shoot Fly, the Rise of Jet Parker, Chapter 1. And it's going to be awesome. I've contacted the world champion indoor skydivers, Leonid Volkov from Russia, and Julian Bruckheimer from Belgium, and just a list of them. And they're all excited. They're disappointed it took 3 years because of COVID. And a lot of them were going to play the roles of the kids, but now because they're much older, they can't. So we'll be holding auditions for that. So if anybody out there knows people that does indoor skydiving, you can, be a skydiver too, but this is focused on the sport of indoor skydiving. And so we'll have competition scenes, so you can make little cameos in there if you want. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be fast and furious in a sense. And then the year after that, hopefully, we'll start on Chapter 2 and 3, which will take place in different parts of the world and have a James Bond appeal to it, or more of a Jason Bourne kind of thing, espionage. And the third one, I will say this, whether or not they do end up participating with me as consultants, the third film will be involving Space Force. And possibly the secret space program. My idea is to work.
With that, my wife's given me the signal. She needs to go. She's got a doctor's appointment, and I've got a whiz her off there. So, hey, listen, let's do this again sometime.
Doc, friend me. Facebook friend me, Doc.
All right. Are you in the chat room where I can click on you? Or how do we do that?
I don't know. I'm one of Terrence's friends online on Sucker.
Yeah.
Okay. Give Terrence your stuff, and he'll forward it over to me, and then we'll
definitely
connect.
Actually, is it all right for me to give him your
email? Yeah, all my contact.
Yeah, just you can give my contact. Just give my info.
I'll give you email. Listen, guys. Look, I really do. Oh, mate. Look, this has been a wonderful show. I'm enjoying
it. It always is.
Pardon?
It always is just incredibly enjoyable.
Oh, well, babe, we're a good combination. I mean, it's like you've got a good soup going on here, and it's always a pleasure to have Jim, Robert, and Doc, and now we've got a new member to the actual table. How's about that, eh? So,
and we didn't get to talk about Belize. That's exciting.
No, but, hey, we will.
That's the next
we will
episode.
Talk about that. We
Yeah.
will talk about that. We'll talk about lots of things. Anyway, we won't be strange at this. I think this worked out good, and I appreciate everybody for coming. I really did. And I'm just going to play a little something to see us out. My good friend John Yost, and I always promise him I'll keep doing it for him. He wrote made a movie. It's called Alien Abduction Answers, and I have a connection to this because he experienced the same glowing entity which I did. And look, you'll see. Anyway, guys, and everybody else, I've got to say thank you very much for joining us. Be nice, be kind, aspire to inspire each other.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. It's awesome.
Thanks, guys. It was fun.
I enjoyed it completely. Thanks again.
And what do you usually say, Doc?
As long as we all lift each other up, we will all rise together.
Amen to that. Catch you later.
Take care.
All right. Good night, guys.
This is not communication. It's communion. Hundreds of thousands of people have claimed contact. That will change you. It changed me.
Lost in between two worlds and two dreams.
This was something that I kept buried for years. Strange things would happen. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore.
He came at me, and I fought for my life.
Ships started to pop up in the sky.
And there's this bizarre disk of light. It is moving across the sky very fast.
The experience is often very terrifying.
If I felt fear, I would crawl under my covers, hoping that it would go away, whatever it was.
I know that we were put in that craft. I knew I was going to go to another planet.
And the being was right next to my face.
He saw two shadow beings. That's when I felt like I was going to die.
I had a real encounter with something. Even if I had to live with the fear, is to know the truth, is to know